Okay. And I'll now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questions. First of all, for Mr. Salisbury, we know that tens of thousands of Americans are dying every year from fentanyl, the vast majority of which is coming from the cartels across the southern border. Can you describe how transnational criminal organizations have adapted in recent years to exploit vulnerabilities in our border strategy, and what HSI is doing through its investigations and prosecutions to stay a step ahead and make some traction in actually disrupting their activities?
Thank you for the question. So when we talk about transnational criminal organizations, they constantly evolve. They constantly try to exploit the vulnerabilities they identify. And so HSI is, as the second largest federal law enforcement agency in the United States government, charged with addressing the TCO threat coming across our border. Obviously, we try to develop the partnerships. A couple of things that we do. First of all, as we try to push these crimes further away from the U.S. border, we try to develop relationships downrange with foreign governments. As we do that, we try to develop the TCIUs. Our HSI's ultimate goal is to push these crimes further and further away from the U.S. border and our communities. So that requires the robust relationships overseas, working with the State Department and the host nations that I described in my opening statement. Additionally, we look to identify the money flows and the gaps that the cartels utilize to come across the border. So we use that ability from our legacy customs days and Treasury and our legacy immigration days to identify how these cartels will attack the vulnerabilities that they identify. Money, certainly as you see cartels today, there's a shift towards cyber, there's a shift towards cryptocurrency. They're certainly trying to hide and invent new ways to smuggle goods into this country. Every day is different. Every day we identify new means and methods, and that's our job, to identify and dismantle these cartels through a plethora of means. We have task forces on the border, and we exercise all our authorities to attack the cartels at every angle, from money, merchandise, and people.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Sabatino, these questions for you. How are K-9 units integrated into overall security apparatus at points of entry, and what role do they play in the larger context of border security?
Thank you for the question, Chairman. Our K-9 assets are one of a number of tools that we employ at our ports of entry to interdict narcotics, an absolutely critical tool. Certainly, in the deployment of that, we're looking at risk, associated with, data that we have, the number of seizures, and by environment, too, where we're seeing the volume coming through. They're integrated in teams. They rove in pre-primary operations. They rove in our cargo operations, and again, work special operations with our CBP officers.
Okay. For either one of you, how will a combination of enhancing technological resources and other force multipliers work to disrupt cross-border crime and start to get the crisis we see at our southern border, where the cartels are running rampant and bringing in deadly narcotics under control?
CBP is currently fostering a whole-of-government approach to combating the flow of fentanyl, and our efforts start certainly with our primary DHS partner, Homeland Security Investigations, but we're also working closely with DEA, the Department of Justice, DOD, the intelligence community, to name a few, to increase efforts to commercially disrupt the fentanyl supply chains themselves. I mentioned earlier leveraging through our National Targeting Center advanced information in our port analytical units, and sharing and collaborating with our partners and making sure that we all have visibility on the information on the threat of the narcotics coming through. Sorry, sir.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. But we're also designating a single point of contact within the National Targeting Center to enable a holistic approach to planning to tackle the fentanyl threats, operationalizing all things fentanyl through one cell in our organization, and partnering also with the industry to ensure that they are aware of what the illicit supply chains are, how their supply chains, lawful supply chains, can be corrupted or compromised by transnational criminal organizations. And we're also aligning our expansion and enhancement of NII technology at our ports of entry, and certainly appreciate the investments that Congress has made in supporting our non-intrusive inspection technology program with significant deployments across the southwest border over the next 2.5 years.
Okay. Could you give me exactly what your plans are? Are there plans to expand the K-9 units, and how many do you have now, and how many do you think you're going to wind up with, say, 2 years from now under current plan?
Our last increase in K-9 teams was in 2019. We currently have 712 positions allocated, and that includes 59 supervisory level positions. Actively on board, we have 488 K-9 teams that are deployed to our ports of entry, and 114 expected to complete training and be deployed this year. And that will leave us with about 51 vacancies, and our goal is to fill those vacancies in the upcoming fiscal year and to complete training by the end of this fiscal year, the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Okay, I'll cut off my questions now at 5 minutes. I just do want to make one comment. It was stated that, we have to find a way for people to get here legally or become citizens legally. Last year, we had over 1 million people sworn in as new citizens. That was the most we've had since 2006. So it's not like nobody can figure out how to get here legally. There are 1 million people here coming here legally. Okay, now I recognize my ranking member,